Hey there everyone, welcome back to another impressions video, and today we're going to be talking about Fallout 4. And I think everybody played Fallout 4. Most people I know played Fallout 4. I assume not everybody subscribed to my channel to played Fallout 4, but I also assume a vast majority of you have, because it's Fallout. And I think, it sold millions on the first day. It's one of those huge games of the year that, you know, people who like RPGs buy. So we've got Fallout 4 here, and I'm just going to talk about it. First, I played through it 3 times, and I got the platinum trophy for it. So I figured after that I'm probably okay talking about it. Um, but yeah, let's talk about Fallout 4 because as people who watch my channel know that Fallout is actually my favorite game series. It's been since the mid '90s, late '90s, I guess '97 or so. Probably my favorite game series since then. And I'm always happy to play a Fallout game. But this game itself, Fallout 4, it's a bit different in a lot of ways, really, than the previous Fallout games. Previous games in the same style, like Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, but also different from. The elements that 3 and New Vegas kept in a lot of ways are different in Fallout 4. So so I guess the big one is the change of the character creation. And this is actually a change that I'm not like super excited about. I don't think it's a great change. I don't think it's horrible or anything. I just don't think it's great, which is the minus of all the skills that you have in the previous games. Like, I understand why. I mean, it's just to make the gameplay simpler. But man, one of my favorite things about going into a Fallout game is playing with the skills. You I assume like a lot of people probably went into this game and spent a lot of time creating how your character looks. But in my case, previous Fallout games at least, I would go in and spend a lot of time tweaking skills and like picking initial perks and things like that. And now like it's been kind of streamlined to a way that like there's no extra perks. Like, perks is just basically all you get now, and they don't you get them like pretty much whenever you want. You can choose from like anything you're qualified to choose, um, which is not. It, I mean, it's not a bad system. I don't think the system for this game is bad. I just think it's. I prefer the previous system. I think it's a lot more flexible, and it gives you a lot more options to make characters that are, specialized, but also characters that are um, a bit more flexible in a lot of different ways. And it's not to say that this doesn't allow that, the new system, but it doesn't allow for the kind of micromanaging of those things that the previous systems did. This one does allow you to make like kind of themed characters, but you have to do it within like the kind of parameters of like what skills do you want this character to have with the perks. And you had to do that previously in other games, but you also had to worry about your skill points, and you had to worry about like other things besides that. They're just kind of gone, and I think that's not actually a good thing. I think it's not as fun to make characters, and it's not as fun to make specialized characters because you don't have the same kind of level of customization for it. And you know, all that being said, I liked the system for Fallout 4, the kind of perk selection system, but it felt like not exactly. Um, it didn't feel as fun as previous games, and that's a theme for Fallout 4. Because I really liked Fallout 4. I played through the whole thing, but I feel like it's not the strongest game in terms of the Fallout series. Like, it's probably better than 3, but not better than New Vegas. And, you know, But this may change because when the DLC, I played all the DLC for the other games, but when this one comes out, maybe more DLC will come out. It'll change things up. It'll add more things that make it a little bit more flexible, give you a bit more options for making like different types of characters. Um, that'd be nice. It could change my opinion in the end, but I think like with the DLC with Fallout 3, it basically broke the game. There was like no, if you had the DLC, like you could basically become an invisible murderer. It was like basically like all you needed was the DLC, and you're basically set. But Fallout 4 here, um, yeah, let's get into this because there are a lot of new things that were good in this. I mean, you start out and the setting is the Northeast, where I'm originally from, so there are a lot of like recognizable places for me. So walking around here, like um, like for example, here's an example. A couple of friends of mine were playing at the same time, and we're just chatting via the PlayStation 4 chat, and I'm like, okay, we're at the beginning of the game, but I'm looking at this map and I'm guessing Salem is around here. So I'm just gonna run through the map, try not to die, just run past all the enemies, heal up if I get damaged, and just run and see if I can find like a city of witches or something. And sure enough, I did find the Witch Museum, which is a real place in Salem that I've been to. So that kind of thing is in the game. There's lots of stuff that is really recognizable from real life, and I mean all the other games are like that too, I assume. But of course, I haven't been to any of the other places. But in this case, I've been to Boston many many times. I've been to the area around Boston many many times. There's lots of things that in the game that are recognizable to me, and I'm hoping there's more DLC for other New England states. That would be cool. I'd be really excited for those. Some like Vermont DLC or like Connecticut DLC or um, I would go nuts for some Rhode Island DLC considering all the like the Lovecraft references and places and kind of missions in this game. There are at least three, and there's like there's Dunwich Borers, which is like a play on the name of the Lovecraft story, the Dunwich Horror, and you do get like this kind of sacrificial knife as a reward for doing the quest. It's just a side quest, and there is the kind of insane asylum quest where like you can find somebody find people who have been living through the blood of this other guy who's been possessed by a kind of ancient artifact, which is a very Lovecraftian thing. And then you have the Pickman's Gallery, which is directly taken from a Lovecraft story. Pickman's model is the name of the story, but so there's at least that. But there's probably more that are like smaller that aren't quests that I'm just forgetting or didn't find. So if you've found any other ones, let me know. But all the Lovecraft related weapons were awesome. I played a whole character that only used melee weapons with the Lovecraft weapons, so it was just like the Pickman's knife and the kind of Cthulhu sacrifice sword or whatever it was. That was good stuff. And those weapons are super powerful. So if you can get them, that Cthulhu sword from the Dunwich Borers quest is like super OP. But yeah, there's lots of stuff going on in this game that is good. I like the kind of initial startup for it, though. The character creation is cool, like making the how the characters look and your wife and like having the kid and all of that. It's nice. It's a pretty good setup, and a lot of this is interesting too because like you start out and you get settlements and you can build things, and like I'm playing through it and I think like at least the main settlement sanctuary is probably broken. Like I think there's a problem with it. Like the happiness never goes up, and it goes way way down. Like sometimes the stuff for it is like all types of broken and weird. Where like it'll say that there's a lot less people and a lot less happiness, but you'll go back like all the values will be different. And only there too. Like it never happened. It never happened in other settlements. So like eventually I just gave up on using Sanctuary as my main settlement and moved everything to like usually Starlight Drive-In is close and it has like a bunch of open space. There's other places basically anywhere you could go and just drop down some benches and stuff and you're pretty much okay. So, but the building thing is fun, but I'm not like huge into that kind of building thing. Like I didn't get really into building things in the settlements. Like, mostly I was just using like prefab buildings for everything, and I just build a million of them. Like build one building for each person in town, and give them like a bed and some like decorations and whatever, and their own personal turret and a little bit of garden, and like everybody would be fine. That was basically the secret to getting the 100% happiness. Was just like build everybody a house, give them their own turret, build some shops. And it was kind of easy. But going on with that, like you beyond the basics of the building, like it didn't have the same kind of feeling of being special to me. Like even though you were doing the building and it was fun for a little bit. I mean, and if you're really into the building thing, like it's probably really fun. But I'm not into that kind of thing. But what I felt with the settlements was that there was no effect on anything. Like nothing. When I built my town, like I expected initially when I started playing the game, I had expected that like occasionally there would be giant raider attacks on the town, um, like Road Warrior style raider attacks, where like 30 raiders would show up and attack your town, like your town people and all the turrets you set up would actually be useful. But instead, like like when I was using Sanctuary as my main town, it never got attacked. I never had a point where Sanctuary was attacked. And other places got attacked that had like really low places, but you go there and there's like, four or five raiders that show up, sometimes less. And it was, the battle was always quick and really easy. And I'd figured that like, oh, since it's a town and all the people are there helping you, like they'd have like a kind of large scale raider attack because like five dudes are going to take over a settlement. That doesn't seem realistic in any situation. But it never really kind of worked out. And there's lots of things that they don't explain about the settlements that are not cool. Like you can trade in between settlements. Like you can set up trade routes and stuff, but like there's really no explanation given for that. Like beyond the initial kind of like, hey, you can do that. Like then there's no explanation of what it does or why you would want to, or like even that like if you have, for example, like you have one town that can purify water really easily. Like there's a lot of ponds or stuff around, or you're like that one in the swamp, and there's lots of places where you can drop those like water purifiers that go in water that like give you a ton of extra water. Like if you build a ton of those, you would have they produce like past like what the town needs. They produce purified water that you can just take or trade to other towns. So like if some place doesn't have a lot of water, you could be trading back and forth. But there's not a real explanation for it, and I never found any like real benefits to doing that. Like so for the most part, like I wasn't even trying to build up a lot of settlements. Like a lot of them I would just like, okay, you're part of the Minutemen now, and then I would never go back there again. And I think that's a kind of a flaw for the game in that like it could have been a lot more in depth. If it were like really in depth kind of like trade route building and like you had to do special things beyond like every once in a while show up and kill a couple of raiders, it would have been a lot more satisfying. It would probably be a lot a lot more difficult for the game, but it would be at least interesting. Like I didn't um, do the whole ending with the Minutemen, so I did about like half the line of the Minutemen, but I didn't go like full on Minutemen all the way. So maybe you can do something better with all the places, but I never got that far into it with them. So who knows? But overall, I think like it's an all right thing that could have been a much better, but just isn't. Um, there's lots of stuff in this game that's fun though. It, it does lack um, the kind of fun not fun in playing the game, but like the funniness of a lot of situations. Not to say that there's not goofiness throughout the game, because there is some, but it's not quite the same level as previous Fallout games. Like usually there's lots of jokey, goofy things going on, like where you're just kind of like, this is a joke quest, you know. Like, there's usually a bunch, and there's usually a lot of weird situations you'll get into where there's kind of like jokey themed places and people, and there's usually a bunch of them. That's like one of the kind of draws of Fallout, is that like it's not grim dark serious. I mean, it's in this kind of horrible awful wasteland, but like, and there are serious parts to it, and but there's also lots of weird goofiness, and that's the kind of thing that I miss from in this game, where it's a lot more straightforward in a lot of cases than other games in the series are. And what it could have used was like, I mean, it's not in the I know the perks aren't the same, but like the equivalent of the Weird Wasteland perk from New Vegas, where it would, if you select the that perk, you would get like weird things would happen in some cases, you know, like strange occurrences that wouldn't happen otherwise would happen in the wasteland. But I think like this game needs just that perk in the background, like automatically added in, so it's like a bit more weird stuff happened. Because there were, like I said, there was some weird stuff that happened, and it's good. I mean, overall, I think it's a pretty good. But I think the tone of this game is a lot more serious than the previous entries. Um, a lot less jokey, a lot less kind of, I don't know, just like go back, if you play Fallout 1 and 2, for example, there's all types of um, references to, you know, pop culture references that are, I mean, don't make any sense in the game, but they're funny, or they're kind of like, even things like in New Vegas, where, you know, like one of the groups of people are a gang of Elvis impersonators. That kind of thing is goofy. It's funny and it's goofy, but like the characters themselves are kind of serious in the sense that they're like a serious gang. They're not like a goofy gang, but they're, I mean, it's goofy, but it's not. Where, and that's like kind of what this Fallout misses. There's not a ton of stuff like that where it's, you know, just goofy in a way that's not, I don't know, it's not very Fallout goofy. So I think that's probably not a good, not a good situation to be in for Fallout. I wish it was not like a solid joke, not like not taking anything seriously, but a little bit less serious. And that being said, like the main storyline, I don't mind if it's serious. Like that's fine. And the main storyline for Fallout 4 is actually pretty good. Um, I find that like I enjoyed the story. I wanted to see what happened. I liked what the characters were, and I liked the kind of twists that happened in it. And I liked having to do a lot of the stuff in the storyline to meet characters or get people's motivations or find things that were interesting. And Fallout 4 did provide that. I felt like I never felt bored playing it, and you know I played it multiple times, so there's nothing really bad about it. And I figure that's, you know, that's like a pretty strong, because um, the storyline for this is, you know, it makes sense. It's not like incredibly. It doesn't have like any weird giant holes like Fallout 3 did, where you're just kind of like, why is this ending this way? But Fallout 4 does kind of falter when you get to the end. So the endings are they're they're just meaningless, I think. Like um and it's not that like what you do is doesn't change things. It does, but there's no, you know, you don't get the slideshow. And I think that I think a lot of people don't like the slideshow, but it's kind of something that is in all the games. Like it's in every Fallout. You have the game ends with a slideshow to tell you what happened. Like when you did this, this happened. When you didn't do this, this happened. And I like that. I think Fallout 4 kind of the ending, I don't care like that the video ending you get is like, you know, 20 seconds or whatever, and it's basically the same no matter what ending you pick. I mean, because it's fine, but what they should have done is also do the slideshow. So like, okay, maybe you sided with the railroad, or you sided with the Minutemen, or you sided with the Brotherhood of Steel, or the Institute. Like, what it should show you in the slideshow is just like, okay, you sided with the Institute, so after this much time passed, this happened with the Institute. This is what happened. This is the result of your choices. Like, maybe the Institute tried this, but because in this quest or something, or in this other thing that you didn't do, this result happened, or this other thing happened. And I think a lot of the things with the slideshow in the previous game is shows you that. You know, in Fallout 3, when you finish, like, you can choose to purify the water or spread the FEV virus, and it gives you like it shows you what happens. It tells you what the kind of conclusion is for your choices. And this game gives you none of that because there's no slideshow. So you get no real closure to your choices. I mean, the choices make a difference, and the game continues afterwards. But like, it it makes you know better sense to give you the slideshow and then just let you continue playing. I mean, I understand why there's not, because it just lets you continue. Like, you can still do more. But, for example, if you were to, like, okay, I joined the Brotherhood of Steel, and um, we went in to kill the Institute or whatever. Here's what happened. Like, here, by joining the Brotherhood of Steel and destroying the Institute, the Commonwealth became this. The Brotherhood of Steel took over, and they, you know, started killing all the ghouls and things, or they kind of killed off all the synths, or did something, like you'd expect the Brotherhood of Steel to do. You'd expect this kind of result from them, but you don't get that. So um, I think that's one of the major weaknesses with the ending. Even though the story is really good, like, it doesn't have like the strongest conclusion, and I think that's probably not the strongest point. Like, I hope in DLC, like the DLC parts, because even in New Vegas, when you would do the DLC story parts got their own slideshows. I hope at least those parts will get a new slideshow of some kind. Like, okay, this happened and there was an end, and here's really what happened. But yeah, Fallout 4. Let's see. What else can I talk about? There's weapon and armor modifications now, which is cool. Um, Basically, they took away the the previous system where you could create weapons. Like, you could craft things out of junk. So like, you get these certain things, and then you can make these new weapons. There's none of that anymore. You can't make your own weapons, which is, kind of a negative. I enjoyed making my own weapons. I thought that was really cool in the previous game. You'd find plans, and you got like your own shish kebab. That's cool. I liked that. Um, and I don't see why they couldn't have done that in this game. But instead, they opted for like just modifying weapons that you already have to do different things. And there's a lot of options. I mean, I have no complaints about the modification system. I think it's cool, and you really do have a lot of options to change guns and change their effects and change how you can use them, or their and like, it changes their weight and their rate of fire and their damage. There's lots of things you can do, and I really enjoy that. The armors have a lot of different effects, and depending on the piece of armor, you can get different types of effects, and you can do different types of special attacks. Sometimes are added to the armor if you select certain upgrades. It's good. The system is really good, and I enjoyed that, and I did a lot of that. Like, I wasn't halfway through my first playthrough before I got like all the achievements for modifying stuff, because like, I just did it so much. And even for stuff that I wasn't really going to use, like, I'd test it, throw it in the on the workbench, and see like, maybe there's something special in this weapon that I can do that other weapons can't do, because there is stuff like that where it's just like, only this one weapon has one special upgrade that you can make. And I think that's a pretty cool system. it works well for Fallout, and I think there are a ton of weapons and a ton of kind of special things. Like there's legendary creatures that are always drop like a rare item, and you get a lot of random rare items that usually work out. So eventually your character will probably be just only rare items that you've modified, and I think that's kind of cool. And you get power armor. The power armor setup, my first playthrough was like entirely power armor. Like I used power armor almost entirely throughout the game. Like I never took it off. And in my second playthrough, I used no power armor except when it was absolutely necessary. And in like, I want to say that I actually preferred the no power armor. In a lot of cases, with using regular armor, I mean, my defense wasn't as high, but like my carry weight would be higher with the regular armor than it was with the power armor, and certain things would be better with the normal armor than with the power armor. You'd get more bonuses. You'd get different kinds of things you could use, and I thought like it was a lot more flexible to not use the power armor in some cases. Though there are things like a jetpack for the power armor and the ultra overpowered Tesla coils for the power armor. If you can get Tesla coils that will do damage to enemies that are around you just by being close. So like if you want to kill a Deathclaw, you just run up and stand next to it, and it'll grab you, and it'll like continually take damage while it's playing through its grab animation, and then it'll like do a little bit of damage to you and throw you, but it'll be constantly taking damage for that whole time. So it just dies really quickly by doing nothing. And a lot of the bigger things would die that way too. You fight a behemoth and you just kind of run circles around it and hope you don't get smashed, and it'll like take damage from the Tesla coils and it'll just die. Um, that was really like towards the end of my first playthrough, it was like super overpowered. Like nothing could even come close to killing me. And I think that was, I mean, it was all right. It was it was fun to be super overpowered, but it wasn't. It's not the best thing that can happen in the game. It's just all the other games are like that too. When you get towards the end and you're like way leveled up and you got all this awesome gear, you're gonna be killing everything pretty easily. And Fallout 4 is no exception. So, yeah, I'm not sure what else I wanted to say about Fallout 4. I can go on and on about it because, I did play it recently and I did play it a couple times. But overall, I want to say, like, it's good. I would recommend it. You should buy it. It's a great game. But it's not the best Fallout. And it's not as good as it could have been due to a lot of the things I mentioned with like making the character thing like streamlined, simplified, whatever you want to say. Um, I don't know, by making making a lot of things like the the weapon creation, not doing enough with the town management creation kind of sim aspect to it. Um, there's a lot of that stuff that I felt like it didn't go far. It either went too far in being too streamlined or not far enough in terms of like complexity to make things worthwhile to do. And that's like most of my complaints. Overall, though, I think it's a great game. I think um, it's a fun world to be in. The world is really dynamic and exciting, and finding things in the world is great. Going through and exploring it, like you know, for the first 10 hours of playing the game, like I didn't do any quests. I mean, not any main quests anyway. Like I think I started doing the main storyline like 20 hours into the game, and all I did was just wander around aimlessly. So I had found like so many places before I even went to. I mean, I played the game for about 20 hours before even going to Diamond City, and like that's literally like the first quest you get. So it's kind of the situation where there's so much to do and so much fun you can have just kind of hanging out that um, it's hard not to recommend the game because just one pick it up a controller and like just wandering around aimlessly for a couple hours in Fallout and just finding things, or maybe talking to people, maybe doing some side quests, whatever. It's an option that's fun, even though you're not really doing the main story of the game. And I think that in itself like speaks of the strength of the game. Shows that it's a fun game, even though like there are some issues with it. And I know, like pretty much all Fallout games previously, there are some technical issues with the game. Like I'm sure it crashed on me a couple times. Um, there was like a point where like um, some of the textures were disappearing on mine, and they were turning into this like weird rainbow mash. That was and like I had floating cows at one point where that they were just like floating in the air. There's stuff like that, and like there's always that thing. I'm not sure. Like sometimes you could launch guys like 60 feet in the air and they'll fly off and come back down. Um, that there's things like that, but you know, comparatively though, I think it's actually a bit technically more sound than like Fallout 3 was at launch or Fallout New Vegas was at launch. I mean, with Fallout 3, I think like it just froze on me like a million times. There were points where it would just freeze for no reason. I'm not even doing anything, just walking in a straight line, it'll freeze. But like, in Fallout New Vegas, there was a point where like I couldn't enter Vegas at all without the game freezing, and like the only way to do it was to like wear a special hat, like one item that was a special hat. If you were wearing, the game wouldn't freeze. I don't know why. It just was a thing, and if you had the hat on, you could pass, and anything else, the game would freeze. And that's that's a pretty big flaw because like Vegas is like the main part of the game. Like that's where the story is in New Vegas. So that was a big thing at launch. Like they had to fix that stuff. And I thought like, man, Fallout 4, I didn't have any problems like that. I didn't have any crazy issues. And I thought, you know, there there were some things like the I think the visuals are good for this game. Like I know people don't like it; they think it looks crappy or whatever. But for me, like this is a nice looking game for, especially for a Fallout game. It looks better than the previous game, so can't really complain. Um, Another thing I wanted to talk about was the radio station. Um, it lacks variety, and I think anybody who played the previous games will know exactly what I mean right away. In that, there's a lot of repeat songs, and I think I understand why. Probably there's like a licensing thing, but like they just got a license or it's easy to get or whatever. But like there's a lot of songs that are repeated from the previous game, Fallout 3 at least. And you're going through and you're just like, oh, well, half of these songs I've already heard. How likely, I mean, just thinking about it, like how likely would it be that the radio station in Boston would have the same records as the radio station in um, Washington D.C. like after a nuclear war? That doesn't make any sense to me. I just think like it would make more sense that they had completely different music. And it's not like there's a lack of nuclear themed songs. Like nuclear themed songs was like a thing. It was like a genre in the 50s. Like like I could probably I could pick out like calypso songs that were about nuclear war. There's like all types of rock songs about nuclear war, and they added some. I mean, they added a bunch, but like even then, like it didn't. They don't all have to be nuclear themed. But like if you wanted to add 30 songs to the disc that were just about nuclear bombs or nuclear war or uranium or whatever, you would have no trouble. Like game songs that had not been in any of the previous games, it would have been fine. And then just like keep the ink spots in because tradition. But they didn't opt to do that. They added like there's new stuff, but there's a lot of old stuff too that you've heard before, and I think that's disappointing for me. Um, it's disappointing because they didn't even do that in between like the kind of 3.5 game that was New Vegas. New Vegas had an entirely new soundtrack, whereas and it was like themed for the area. So you got all your country music in there, but not so much with the old Fallout 4 because it's pretty similar to Fallout 3's soundtrack. With the, there's a few standout examples that are good, but that are new at least. I mean, you guys know what they are, but there were a lot of repeats, and I thought that's not so good. So yeah, I guess that will be all I gotta talk about. This video is long, and I've been just rambling because I haven't, really thought about it or collected my thoughts on this. I'm just sitting down and doing it. But overall, I think it is a good game, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm gonna, of course, I'll get the season pass forward and get all the DLC and play all that because there's something special about the Fallout world. The Fallout itself is like I don't know, there's something about the kind of aesthetic of it and the tone of it that is really good at drawing me in. Like, I think the kind of what if 50s sci-fi became real and then they destroyed themselves kind of world is really good. It's a really interesting, really exciting, really um, just great world to hop into. It feels retro future post-apocalyptic. That's basically it. That's basically Fallout, and it's spectacular, and it's deeply kind of, because there's so many games now. It's the kind of lore of it is interwoven between the games, and there's kind of references between the games, and you've got like this kind of world building that goes on in places that you haven't been to yet, places the games haven't been to yet, but you kind of know about some of those things because of their referenced in these games. And I think that's a really interesting thing for me. I like finding things where it'll give you a mention of, oh, here, this building or this kind of thing happened, this contact came from this area, or this state had something entirely different going on, or the Brotherhood of Steel was here before doing this other thing that we haven't seen in a game. Or in some cases, like in this game, there's a point where like they reference some events that happened in Fallout 3. um, a character was there or was doing part of it or was training during it, and you're thinking like, oh, that's kind of a cool throwback for people who played Fallout 3. But yeah, overall, it's a good game. I would definitely buy it. If you haven't bought it or you haven't played it, yeah, go ahead, get on it. I wouldn't, I wouldn't steer anybody away from this game. I just think like if you are like a pretty hardcore Fallout fan and you're, expecting more. I don't know why I go into these things expecting more depth. I know that's not like the kind of focus for game development these days. It's a lot more, let's streamline this and make it more simple. It's very much like a thinning more than a widening in terms of like how in depth you can go. But I kind of did expect it to be, because the previous games did have kind of add on top of each other in terms of Fallout 3 to Fallout New Vegas. New Vegas wins in terms of like depth for things because there's just more stuff. Whereas Fallout 4 kind of took away a lot of stuff. And that's like one of my major disappointments with the game, but it still doesn't stop me from really having loved playing it and spending like a ton of time playing it and not being able to pull myself away from it for hours at a time. So yeah, Fallout 4. I'm gonna be done with this because this video is long. So yeah, Fallout 4, good game, good series, and I hope the Fallout 4.5, wherever it may be, comes out soon. It's not coming out soon. It's gonna come out in like 2 years, maybe 3, but I'll be on that too. So yeah, I guess that's it. I will see you guys next time.